Hello and welcome back here. Thank you for joining me as always. And as always, thank you for your dedication and commitment to your spiritual practice, whatever that looks like, and whatever role A Course in Miracles plays in that, whether it's prominent or none at all. And you're simply popping in to check this out, wondering what this thing called A Course in Miracles is all about. Yes. Whatever the situation, welcome. What we're going to talk about today is this weird condition in which we appear to find ourselves. And if you've not tuned in before, I stress the word appear, as in we appear to find ourselves. We appear to be here wherever you happen to appear to reside on this wobbling, spinning ball of rock, which we call our home. We appear certainly to be here. We appear to be running around as this, a body, which appears to be separate from other bodies, which may or may not be in cooperation or collaboration with you as you do life. And sometimes people are, and the next minute they are not. We can all relate to that. Up, down, roller coaster, wild ride. I think we'd all agree on the fact that it's a wild ride, for sure. And we appear to be here. This appears to be us. Yet there is a part of us that knows it is not. There is a part of us that knows that there's more to it than all of the stuff with which we occupy our time, like our email inbox. Mm, that's a forgiveness opportunity. Delete, 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 delete. Yeah, there's more to it than that. There's more to it than our jobs or our career. Indeed, there's more to it than our relationships in life, though they may occupy a very prominent place in our mind and in our activities. There's more to it than just all of the stuff that we do to meet the needs and the comforts of this 80% water organism thing that we refer to as us. There's more to it than that. And a part of us, a part of our mind knows this and has listened to this, which is a call from the Holy Spirit, our inner teacher. A part of us has listened multiple times and knows there's more to it than just all of the drama that we enmesh ourselves in day to day, moment to moment. Of course, there is. It's why we're all on the spiritual path. It's why you're interested in this video. And it makes no difference how you got here. If YouTube just popped it into your feed and you thought, what's this? It's a good question, right? You're here for a reason. And whatever that appears to be, you've heard the call of the Holy Spirit, our inner teacher. Call it whatever you want to call it, by the way. And if you want to refer to it as your counsel, then do that. They're all simply names. You've heard the call to awaken, and you have answered it. Thank you on behalf of every living thing. It's huge. Your dedication and commitment to practice, your very being here, wherever you appear to find yourself, whether it's nighttime, the middle of the night, morning, afternoon, whatever, you're here. Welcome and stick around. So we appear to find ourselves here, yet a part of us knows that the body's needs, eating, drinking, going to the bathroom, shelter, food, yeah, clothing, I mean, maybe a nice bottle of wine sometimes or something, right? All of that. There's more to it than that, much more. And here, as we appear to do life, we mentioned a moment ago that we are on a wild ride. And we certainly look like we're on a wild ride, don't we? It's up, down, up, down. 1 minute we may feel great, then really badly. And it often alternates so that we frequently find ourselves overwhelmed, burned out, and exhausted, for sure. It looks like a wild ride, and what's going on here is our mind is, in fact, split. In truth, it's not even possible, but this is what we appear again to be experiencing here in the world, doing life. We have this wild range of emotions, this up, down of our experience where we feel great one moment, very poorly the next, and it alternates. And sometimes the troughs last a long time. Sometimes the crests last quite a while too, but we always come tumbling back down. Hmm. Not fun, for sure. Not fun. And here we are with an amazing opportunity to set it all aside. Hmm. We appear to be here for sure. We appear to be physical bodies running around, doing life. And our mind is, in fact, in this condition torn because you have listened to the voice of our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, this universal call to awaken. You don't have to call the Holy Spirit the Holy Spirit. If that term doesn't do it for you, great. That's what it is. You call it whatever you want to call it. The pronoun it is wholly appropriate. It's not a guy. It's not a dude, not a woman, not a human being. So we have this weird state of affairs going on here in the world where our mind is actually torn. We've listened more than once to the call of the Holy Spirit to awaken. It's what has us on the spiritual path. There's a lot of other content out there. Then here you are. That should tell you a lot. Yeah, here you are. You've listened more than once, so you're no longer wholly and totally insane. How's that? Isn't that exciting? We're, all of us, no longer totally insane because we've been willing to listen to our inner teacher. And we're on what we call a path, a walk, a journey, a spiritual path, practice, journey. Yeah, we're on that. So we're in a very interesting position. We've heard the voice for God, which, by the way, is one of the names by which the Holy Spirit is known here in A Course in Miracles, where he himself, it itself, is known by many different names. That's one of them. We've heard this voice, yet we're also still listening to the voice of separation, the ego, this false sense of self that thinks that we're independent individuals running around here as an independently existing separate body, separate from other bodies, and separate from God. We think we've left God behind in the dust, and we think we're all here as individuals. Implicit in this language, deliberately placed, of course, is that we are not separate. And of course, we are not. And you do know this. You do know this. This is the part of us that knows. Let's listen to it. It's the Holy Spirit who knows who, what, and where you are. In truth. I mean, really, go there. You know. We all know. We don't have to acknowledge it, of course. You're free to deny anything that this course says. You're free to cast dispersion, doubt, and your own projected fear on the pixelated image that you see on the screen, which is actually all you're really looking at. Nothing, in fact. When something connects for you, it's the Holy Spirit. This whole thing is the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And of course, he speaks to us in many, many different ways. Often it is simply a thought or a feeling, a gut feeling. You've experienced those, an intuitive hit. Now, you may consider yourself to be quite intuitive, in tune, or whatever language you want to use. Yeah, you are, because you're here quite clearly. Yeah, and that's often how the Holy Spirit speaks to us. And it could be a voice that we hear in our mind, in a language that we can understand. It might simply just be a feeling, or it may be something that we see as we drive down the road or take a walk or look out a window that reminds us of who, what, and where we really are. There are many different ways of this communication. And here we appear to find ourselves split. It's said here in A Course in Miracles, the mind is split because we are listening to the Holy Spirit, and at the same, so we're not wholly and completely nuts, we're not wholly and completely insane, and at the same time, we're still listening to the ego's voice saying, judge this person, they're awful. Judge that group of people, political party, nation state, judge them, they're awful. They're going to get your stuff unless you preemptively strike. They're awful. Judge, judge, right? The ego voice that assumes that we're separate. And it takes this sense, this notion of separation, to be concrete reality, hard fact. Yet you know it's not. And so here we are. We often find ourselves in conflict, frankly, in our mind, in this weird, wild ride, push pull that leaves us exhausted. So let's pay attention to the simplicity, the sheer simplicity of the message of A Course in Miracles here. It is quite succinct. It is. It's quite simple. We introduce each and every layer of complication ourselves. We add the complication ourselves. The message of this course is very simple, and one of the predominant messages here is that, well, we actually can't have it both ways. We can't keep the ego and the Holy Spirit. It's one or the other. The two of them, by the way, don't hang out. They don't acknowledge each other. The ego doesn't even know what the Holy Spirit is. It feels threatened, sure, by some force that it cannot even contemplate, but it feels, and this is the only thing, incidentally, that it's correct about, it knows, feels, and is terrified that at some point you're just going to leave it aside. Mm. One of the questions we have to ask ourselves right now is when? Maybe today. And we find here in this torn, split state of mind that we need a process. Because if we were able to just really easily leave the ego aside right now, this conversation wouldn't be happening. But because it's necessary right here where we appear to find ourselves, here we go. We have the opportunity to choose right now in the present moment. We have the opportunity to choose the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. That's the choice that we make, and we cannot keep both. So we can't forgive 99.9% of everything that we see and people and all of our experience. We can't forgive almost all of it, yet reserve our own special little disdain and hatred for the opposition political party, for example, or a certain world leader, or our ex, or our boss, or a few people. We can't keep our judgment and blame and have the peace of God. Why? The peace of God is total, it's whole, it's all inclusive, and it does not judge. Indeed, it cannot, because there's no separate other to judge. There is no separation of any kind. This ego voice is totally and completely wrong, and you don't have to follow it. So, what happens when you start choosing the Holy Spirit? What happens when you begin to choose true forgiveness of the Son of God and anything, and I do mean anything that is not wholly and completely and totally joyous in your life? What happens then when you begin to do the course? Because that's how we learn it. Well, let me tell you, our experience changes a lot. It's not really possible to add to that because truth, who we really are, can be known. In other words, experienced. It's beyond words, it's beyond all of our concepts, indeed, including beyond language, which is symbolic anyway, because these sounds that we appear to understand aren't the things themselves that we're referring to, and the things themselves that appear to be separate things here on Spinning Ball of Rock aren't real either. It's language is twice removed from reality, as it says here in the course. And yeah, that's true. However, we're using it right now, and there's no accident at all that this broadcast is taking place in a language that's widely understood here on Spinning Ball of Rock. No accident at all. And you're here, which is also not an accident at all. There are no accidents in salvation. And the Holy Spirit doesn't make mistakes. Ego, it's a constant mistake. It itself is a mistake, and we don't have to listen to it. So, as someone who is no longer wholly insane, you now know whether you accept it or not is up to you, of course. It's your choice. But you now know that you have a choice in the present moment. You may listen to the voice for God and set the ego aside. And the more that you become aware of this choice, hence the repetition on this video and all videos and the entire spiritual path, no matter the tradition, it's a lot of rinse repeat. Now, we may run from this rinse repeat thinking, yeah, that's so yesterday. I did that yesterday. Great, do it again today. We can see how really unhelpful that modern attitude is if that's so yesterday. Give me something I haven't seen before. Well, there's nothing that you haven't seen before. Sorry. As I'm fond of saying, spirituality is an adult endeavor. because it's about our taking a really long and hard and honest look at our lives, our experience. This course invites us to consider this. We're doing this to ourselves. There is no one else out there. This sense of separation is completely inaccurate. There is no separation of any kind. We have the opportunity here to choose the voice of the Holy Spirit instead of the voice of the ego. And the more we do that, the more our experience changes. Now, if you have embarked on this course and practiced true forgiveness, I mean, really done it, you'll know what we're talking about here is that you don't see things the same way. Here's a really, really clear example of that. Now, you can fill in the details from your own experience, but I invite you, especially on days where it feels like this doesn't work. Perhaps you're having one of those right now. I mean, I don't know. It's frequent enough, and we can all relate to that. These days where we'd rather just go back to bed, thinking, yeah, this really isn't working. When is this going to start to produce some results in my life? Well, something that I've always found helpful, and perhaps you will too, so I share it here, is that think of where you were and who you were when you began your spiritual practice, whatever that is, right? And you can take any element of that if you want to. When you began, what were you like? What things bothered you a lot? Now, fast forward, do they still bother you the same way? Does all of the stuff, the drama that impacted you so bitterly at some point in the past affect you the same way today? And when you take an honest assessment, if you've been doing a spiritual practice for a while, even if it's just for 15 minutes, I mean, that's still enough to know that you don't see things the same. You may have had this experience multiple times where someone, let's say, says the same thing, knowing it can get under your skin, and you used to fly into a fit of rage, judge, lash out. And let's say after a period of time and your dedication and commitment to spiritual practice, that person doesn't appear to have changed at all, and they still say the same thing, and it doesn't bother you. You no longer react the same way. That is a sign that this is working. And we all have days where this is very helpful to think about. So, to the extent that you're having one of those, yeah, I fully get it. This is one way that we can look and see. Now, understand this. The purpose of this course is not to effect change on the world that we appear to inhabit. There is no world. You've always known that. However shocking it may appear. And if you've watched these videos before, it will come as no shocker at all. In fact, Jesus says here, that is the central teaching of the course. We're perfectly at home in God, where we've always been. There is no separation of any kind. This is a dream. So, as we appear to be here, we can choose the guidance of the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. The ego itself is a mistake. Mistakes call for correction, and we can choose to accept the correction of the Holy Spirit. Corrects our perception, turns it right side up. And we each have in this course a beautiful and wonderful and highly powerful and impactful opportunity to do this right now, which you could choose to do. And along the way, questions come up for sure. Again, we all have these days where it just doesn't feel like any of this is even working. And yeah, I mean, where were you when you set out? And do the same things bother you now? Or do you see them differently? I mean, that can be a very, very powerful question to ask. This course is all about healing the mind. It is not about affecting change in the world outside. There is no world. Therefore, you don't see this course focusing on getting more money in the dream, or getting a new romantic partner in the dream, or getting both of those at the same time in the dream. It's about waking up from the dream, not about rearranging the dream's apparent component parts. It's a big difference. So you're here again, and I thank you for being here. And thank you to those of you who have recently subscribed. There have been a handful of you here. It's a growing community, it's an international community. And if you have not yet subscribed, I'd love to have you join us. So that's the prompt in the corner of your screen over here. Click that and you'll be invited to subscribe and join us. So please do that. And questions are more than welcome. This comment thread is a perfect place to ask questions if you have them. And if you just wish to pop in and say hello, I'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and do that as well. Okay? So several videos appear each week. Yeah, 4, 5, 6 videos a week because, well, spirituality doesn't go anywhere. Exactly. There's no specific place for it to go anyway. And we all need our reminders. So thank you for tuning in. And again, questions if you've got them, subscribe if you have not, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you for joining me.